Welcome. If you're new to the world of instructional design, you're stepping into a field that's more critical and honestly more complex than it's ever been. So over the next few minutes, we're going to break down the key challenges, the skills you've got to have, and the modern mindset you'll need to really make an impact.
Okay, let's just dive right in. To really get why instructional designers are so in demand right now, we first have to understand the problem they're being hired to solve, and believe me, it is a big one.
All right, let's kick things off with a number that's, well, it's pretty jaw-dropping. A recent report found that a whopping 89% of executives are actually worried about their own company's training programs.
And look, this isn't just some small, nagging concern. We're talking about a fundamental crisis of confidence. They're looking at the future and thinking, our training just isn't going to cut it. They know something's broken.
And this is where the rubber meets the road. These aren't just feelings. They have real-world consequences. Executives are directly linking this bad training to an 11% drop in productivity. Nearly a third of them predict losing actual revenue, and a massive 72% blame it for high turnover. I mean, the stakes here are just incredibly high.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Check out this disconnect. You've got about half the VPs and execs in the boardroom saying, yeah, our training is inefficient. But then you go to the shop floor, to the operations managers. 95%. Almost every single one of them is saying their programs are failing. That gap tells you everything. The people closest to the action are feeling the pain way more.
So all that anxiety at the corporate level, it creates a really specific and tricky situation for the instructional designers brought in to fix things. See, your job isn't just about building courses, it's about navigating a really complex and sometimes messy human system.
You know, when researchers actually talk to designers about what it's like on the ground, they found this really interesting pattern. People tend to go through 4 distinct phases. It kicks off with just plain old confusion about what their role is, which leads to trying to manage everyone's expectations. Then comes the frustration with all the roadblocks, and finally, you learn how to stand your ground and assert your expertise.
And this quote right here from a designer named Kate, man, does it nail that frustration phase. She talks about this super common struggle, right? You know what the right thing to do is, you know how to design an effective learning solution, but you're just blocked by red tape, last-minute changes, and people who won't trust the expert they hired.
And this really gets to the heart of the matter. You're constantly caught in this tug of war. On one side, you have the business, which, let's be honest, can sometimes just want things done fast and cheap. And on the other, you have the learners, who need something that, works. This tension pretty much forces you to become an advocate, a champion for good learning. But it's not all doom and gloom. In the middle of all that frustration, you get these amazing moments. Here's the designer, Pepper, who shared that when she brought up even a super basic instructional design idea, everyone looked at her like she was a genius. And that just perfectly highlights the knowledge gap out there. What seems like common sense to you can be totally revolutionary to them.
Okay, so we've painted a picture of a pretty challenging landscape. The big question is, what skills do you actually need to thrive in it? Let's get into the specifics, the tools and abilities that employers are really looking for right now.
All right, let's look at the data. An analysis of 100 recent job postings gives us a really clear picture. When it comes to software, there's a definite pecking order. You've got Articulate Storyline and Adobe Captivate leading the pack for building courses, with Camtasia right behind for video. And yeah, the fundamentals like the ADD model and standards like SCORM, still absolutely essential. So if you're wondering where to start with the tech stuff, this is your roadmap.
But here's the thing, it is not just about the software. When those same job postings were analyzed using the Association for Talent Development's Big Capability Model, a really clear pattern popped up. Skills related to developing professional talent, the actual work of training, were mentioned 346 times. That's way more than personal or organizational skills. It's a great reminder that the core job is still the core job.
So what's the big takeaway here? When you boil it all down, employers are looking for this powerful mix. Yes, you absolutely need the tech skills, but, and this is a big but, the so-called soft skills are just as critical. Communication, collaboration, leadership, that's how you navigate that whole designer's dilemma we talked about. You don't just have to build the training, you have to build the buy-in to get it done right.
And this very need for a bigger, more strategic way of thinking is what's pushing the whole field to evolve. It's leading to a new kind of mindset, something called Learning Experience Design, or LXD for short.
Now, LXD isn't just a fancy new buzzword for instructional design. It's a real shift in how we see things. It's about recognizing that learning doesn't happen in a bubble, right? You can build the most beautiful e-learning course in the world, But if the work environment doesn't support what people learned, it's useless. LXD is about designing that whole ecosystem for success. So, to make this idea a little less abstract, you can think of LXD skills as fitting into 3 main buckets. First, you have your core knowledge. That's the foundational stuff, like the science of how people actually learn. Then you've got your applied skills, the practical side, managing projects and measuring results. And finally, you have the strategic abilities, seeing the big picture, understanding the business, and committing to your own lifelong learning.
Okay, so what does all this, the crisis, the dilemma, the new skills, what does it all mean for you as someone just starting out? Well, just understanding this complex landscape, that's the real first step in carving out your own career path.
Look, if all of this is making you feel a little overwhelmed, that is not just normal, it's actually a good thing. It's a necessary step. Real understanding only begins when you realize how much you don't know. So that feeling of being a total novice, that's not a sign you're failing, it's the sign you're at the starting line.
There's actually a name for this messy but totally essential process. It's called sense-making. It's that struggle where you're grappling with new theories, trying to connect them to the real world, and slowly, piece by piece, building your own understanding. A learner named Tad put it perfectly. He said you have to be pushed off balance. And that's really what learning feels like.
So, as you start your own journey, remember this. Your ultimate goal isn't just to learn the software or memorize a bunch of theories. The real challenge, and honestly the real fun of it, is to take all of these pieces, the business problems, the design principles, the tech, and construct your own unique, effective approach as a designer. That's the path you're on now.